all of the things.
You're streaming.
Hi, YouTube. How you doing? Great. That's great. What was your day like? Great. Awesome. I just need to find my notes really quick.
I, as YouTube, couldn't get a word in edgewise.
Just how I like it. All right. Hi, Amy. How's it going?
I need you to get that mic a little more centered on you there.
Way out. And
That's what I was saying, is if that spot doesn't work, yeah, you can do that.
it be like this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of little joints there.
Okay.
I mean, in the microphone.
Take
thing.
2.
Here you go.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Josie.
How's it going?
It's going great.
This is my first time saying hello to you.
Yes. We've never met before.
I think we should jump right in for the
Let's
sake
do
of
it.
our listeners.
Absolutely.
We're like, get on with it. Like Monty Python quote, get on with it. Okay.
Yes.
What does an officiant do?
An officiant makes your marriage legal. That is what we do, especially in the state of Minnesota. We're there to be the legal entity of your wedding.
Right.
That is the bottom line.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Does an officiant necessarily run your rehearsal and line up your processional and just give guests notes about the upcoming reception?
They sure can, and some do, some don't. I like to do that. I think it's important for officiants to show up at rehearsals and run rehearsals. One of the reasons that is that it takes a lot of pressure off your friends and family.
Right.
Because when you have a wedding party and you're walking your moms in and dads and all of that stuff, they're not. They want to do their best.
Right.
They don't want to be the one who screws up.
And they want to be told what to do.
They want to be told what to do.
This is the one time in your life that you can be so bossy to your
Yes.
moms, your dads, and your friends.
Except if you're a bride or a groom, it can be really difficult to take that authority upon yourself. So, a wedding planner is really primed for that. And also for specifically the ceremony, the officiant / minister is exceptionally primed for it because we bring a sense of authority.
You are the authority. I talk
Yeah.
about this all the time. I could be like, this has happened, not with you, duh, where a friend officiates and forgets to tell everyone to sit down after the entire processional has proceeded up to the front. And we've continued through the welcome, through what's the part where you're like, we do?
The questions of intent.
Questions of intent, through first reading and through a poem, which was like an additional reading. And I was telling people, like, sit down, like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to stand. They paid money for the chairs. Please sit down.
Right.
And I even got, like, the front row to sit down on one side, but no one else followed, so they stood back up. They were waiting for the officiant to say, you may sit down. Please be seated.
And I remember, now I've done 240 weddings. I remember maybe my third wedding, I forgot to tell everybody to sit down. Yeah. And I looked up and said, oh,
you can sit down.
You can sit down now. I'm sorry.
Everyone's like, thank you, thank
yes.
you, thank you.
But there's a sense of authority there. And we could probably have an entire podcast on why that is psychologically. There's something about the authority of pastor, minister, officiant that gives me the ability to really capture people's attention. And that it's much easier for me then to disseminate that information. The trick is it's all the couple's information. So it's not just me saying, this is how I want it to go. It's me saying way before the rehearsal, how do you want your ceremony to go? And then I will give that information to your friends and family, and they are more likely to listen to me.
So some good examples, if you, after your ceremony, are doing a receiving line, a dismissing line, a large group photo, or immediate family photos, or if your cocktail hour is kind of in a different location where it's not super evident as people are walking back down the aisle where to go, all of those things are really, it's really great when the officiant can be like, oh, and by the way, here's what you're doing next. Yes. I know it was listed on the program, but I know you also use that as a butt warmer. So let me tell you what you're actually supposed to be doing.
And I do that. I actually, for my ceremonies, I do it right before the pronouncement.
I like that.
So, and I usually, a lot of times I have to talk my couples into this, like, oh, it's a break in the action. But if we get done with the meat and potatoes of the ceremony we're about to pronounce, I'll usually say, before I have the privilege of pronouncing this couple married, I just have a couple of announcements. And when dinner is being seated, where cocktail hour is there going to be a receiving line?
Or if they're supposed to get their bubbles or their petals ready.
Yep, exactly. So then, and it's amazing. If I look out into the audience at that point, I will always see at least a dozen people nodding their heads going, okay, now, we know what's going on.
Like if they had a notepad in their back pocket, they'd be like, okay, and now what was that last part?
Yes.
Okay, let me write it down.
Yes, but they've been told what to do, which is really helpful.
Yes.
And, if you have guests, if you have 50 guests, if you have 300 guests, there's going to be at least one person who needs to go take medication, who got an urgent text during the wedding, and they want to know what time frame they have.
Or just it's Uncle Jim and he doesn't pay attention ever.
That could be Uncle Jim, that darn Uncle Jim.
It's usually
every
Uncle Jim.
wedding.
Every wedding. You
There's
can picture
always
him.
one of those.
White button down, colored tie, slacks, hands in his pocket.
Yep.
Balding just a little bit on top.
Yes.
Very friendly.
Yes.
Everyone throws him under the bus. They're like, this is our Uncle Jim. He's stupid. Tell him more what to do.
Yes, and again, there's some people who are really uncomfortable with social hours. They want to leave or they want to go sit in their car. Whatever they want, I'm 100% sure that most couples want their guests to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And when the guest really knows the timeline and you have your officiant who has that sense of authority, tell them what's happening next. You take away all of that angst and anxiety that people have of like, oh, I don't know. Maybe they don't know a lot of people.
Where do we go? What about, I have a card in my hand. Just where do I put the card?
Exactly. So I think it's important. And so that's something, like we're talking about. So bottom line, officiant is there to make your marriage legal. On top of that, we're also there hopefully to be a vendor. I really consider myself a wedding vendor, of someone of value, to meet your planner, your day of coordinator, to meet your photographer, to meet your DJ, and say, hey, we're having a ceremony. How are we all helping each other?
Teamwork makes the dream work.
It does. It does. Everyone that I encounter that's a vendor for a ceremony has a piece of a fragmentary plot that is your wedding. And I want to know what it is, and I want the other vendors to know what they are. And so that's a huge part of it, getting there early and shaking hands and making sure that everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so how flexible are you when it comes to the actual format of a ceremony? And maybe we can talk about a typical format.
So really, really flexible. And I can't speak for other officiants, but for me as an interfaith minister, my job is to say all of the words that you want to have said to your friends and family on your behalf, and to not say any of the words you don't want me to say. The only thing that I have to do during a ceremony is that you have to say I do, or we will, or I will, to a question of intent. That means that you are giving me permission to pronounce you married. And that is the second thing, to be pronounced husband and wife, pronounced wife and wife, husband and husband, or simply pronounced married. Those are the two legal requirements for the state of Minnesota. So really, if you're like, and sometimes people get excited about this, your ceremony could be done in 20 seconds. We could all walk in. I could ask that simple question. You could answer it. I could pronounce you, and we could walk out. Beyond that, everything is negotiable because none of the rest of it is the legal part of the ceremony.
Right.
So if you are particularly religious, then we can put in prayers, rituals that pertain to your particular religion. If you're particularly spiritual, we can do all sorts of things. But whatever is meaningful to you and your partner is what we want to lift up and show to your friends and family. People are coming to your wedding to find out who you are as grown-ups, why you love each other. It's kind of like a coming out party.
Like who you are as a couple.
Yes.
They likely know you as individuals.
Yes.
Or they're your friends and you go drinking every weekend, in which case they know who you are and just are looking to be impressed with how adult you can be.
Right. Exactly. There's always people at your wedding there that say, I haven't seen you since you were this tall.
Right.
And you get this opportunity to say or to have your officiant say, or to say it with music, who you are.
And why we love each other.
Yes.
And how we love each other and
Yes.
what we are committing to for our life.
Exactly. And people really are interested in showing up and seeing a meaningful ceremony that is full of what's meaningful to you.
Right. So a typical ceremony outside of the Catholic Church or non-Jewish would be processional and then a welcome.
Yep. So, seating of the family, whoever you'd like to have seated, processional, welcome. After that, completely up to the couple of whether or not they want to have an invocation or prayer.
Okay, say what those are.
So,
I mean, not a prayer. I know what a prayer is.
Well, right. So an invocation is basically a prayer that is a welcoming of God.
Okay.
And so my invocations are really mostly about gratitude and thankfulness. So, thanking everyone for coming. Thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for your tireless watch, that we all got here safely. Thank you for a wonderful opportunity to celebrate. It's just a way to call in God, which, again, is only necessary if you have invited God to your wedding. But the cool thing about God is that there are so many names that we call God. And so sometimes we are connected to the Christian God, and sometimes we're connected to the Creator God, and sometimes we're, connected to that just Spirit, Holy Spirit, divine spark. So there's lots of ways we can invoke something bigger than us.
Right. For
for
me,
your
that's
wedding.
totally like what it's about. Like, okay, let's just realize how, not in a negative way, but how meaningless our lives are and how there's this huge bigger picture. And so meaningless meaning like, yes, it's pretty, but we don't need to fret about the chairs. Yes, dinner's going to be great, but if the chicken's cold, it's okay. Like those are not the things that matter. It's about relationships and how we treat each other and being a part of this world in a positive manner.
Right. And a lot of people will give that space to the divine.
Yeah.
To bring us all together and remind us how we're connected.
I had a couple, and they just recently got married at Nicollet Island. Anna and Tim, I'm shouting you out big time because I was super impressed, and I adored their ceremony. And they took that moment to recognize Native Americans and the people who came before, and they said the Indian name of the river, whatever that might be. I could not tell you. But just recognizing in that space who had come before and that there will be people who come after.
Wow, I have
Isn't that unique?
goosebumps.
I know.
That's lovely. That's lovely. And that's the type of thing
that's unique to that couple.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so my job as a minister, as an interfaith minister and a wedding officiant is to say yes to people's ideas about what they want for their wedding,
right,
and what is important to them. And even if it's something that I don't have a lot of experience with, I ask my couples, explain it to me.
Yeah.
Why is this meaningful?
Yeah.
And to help them kind of put together something that makes sense for the audience, makes sense for the two of them, finding a place in the ceremony where it flows best.
Right.
And always saying yes to
What's
to that meaningful piece. Yeah.
So invocation prayer, and at this time, perhaps everyone could still be standing, and at which point you would do the part where you're like, who gives this man and this woman?
I never do that.
You never do it. I think it's so cute.
Well, unless they ask me.
Okay.
So I don't put it in most of my ceremonies.
What's that called? Does it have a name?
Giving away, giving away of the bride or the groom.
But then what's the part where it's like who, saying all of the wedding guests, you guys are here because you're saying that you will support this couple in their marriage and in their life? Yes. Okay, so would that come next?
Usually what I do is after the prayer, so if everybody walks in and we didn't have a prayer, if this was a more secular wedding, I would have everyone be seated.
Okay.
But if we're going to pray, I'll have everyone remain standing, read the prayer, say amen, and then have everyone seated.
Okay.
Normally then I go into a reading.
Okay.
So, and readings can be, they can be anything.
Anything.
They can be scripture,
if
poetry.
It's me, it should be Zelda Fitzgerald because she's super romantic.
Yeah. I mean, it can be song lyrics. It can be really anything that's meaningful to you. You can have your officiant read that, or you can have someone that you care about to read, as long as and here's my pro tip. Pro tip. Anybody who reads, make sure they want to be reading.
Yay.
That if they're nervous, if they don't want to do it, don't have them do it. It's stressful for them. It isn't going to come across very nice. It just your officiant should be happy to
Some
read.
people do have stage fright.
Yeah.
Neither of us do.
No.
Some people. I will read your reading.
Right. Have your wedding planner come up and read your reading.
Over the past 3 to 8 months, I've really grown very close with this couple.
Yeah.
Over our 4 meetings.
Hey, it's a fast friend type.
It is a fast friend. Start with hugs.
Yes, absolutely. So I usually go into a reading, and then after that, we do the questions of intent. So I'll ask the couple first.
Do you?
And any manner of way. So the easiest way I can say it is, Josie, do you come here freely and without reservation to be married to this person today?
I do for the podcast.
Yes.
Not to be married.
That's the easiest way I can ask. But if you're interested in more traditional vows of do you take this person to be your lawfully wedded husband or wife to have and to hold from this day forward, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or you can pick all sorts of other things. The state of Minnesota does not say what that question has to be.
What about churches?
What about them?
Do they require you to have specific verbiage in terms of your declaration of intent or your vows?
Depends. So, if you're thinking of certainly the Catholics do, most Protestant churches have what's called a wedding liturgy.
And likely you're not going to be doing a Catholic mass because you have to be a priest?
Likely not, but you'd be surprised. I've done a couple.
Where they're heavily
Catholic.
You
but
just
we're
don't
outside.
give communion.
I have not done that yet. But
if you did give communion, you just have to have a priest that first gives it to you. Is that how that works?
So,
oh man, I went to Catholic school. I should know this, but I don't.
Here's the thing about religious rituals. There are lots of rules around these things.
Yeah.
There are lots of people in this world that would say, wait, you're a woman. You can't be a minister. You can't marry people. Certainly there would be a lot of people who say, well, you're not Catholic. You're not a man. You can't do a Catholic service. However, I don't operate that way.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you are a Catholic couple and you've been divorced and not annulled, which means the annulment process is where you go through and you say this marriage never happened, and it allows you to get married in the Catholic Church again. It's a very expensive and painful
Do you have to write
process.
a letter to the Pope?
You have to write letters. You have to say that.
Yeah.
You have to say a lot of things. And you can
Mean
look
and
it up
hurtful
online.
things.
So I marry some people who are divorced Catholics, but they're still Catholic.
Yeah.
And they want Catholicism
In their ceremony.
And so I am willing to do those things. I am willing to say those prayers. I'm willing to follow the Catholic liturgy. But the best thing about it is because it's not a truly Catholic wedding, I can hand over that Catholic liturgy and say, what do you find meaningful in these words? And what do you not want in there? And we can take those things out because
you're not in a cathedral.
We're not in a cathedral.
A church.
So
that's interesting. Okay, yeah.
And there are people who
to each their own.
Exactly.
Yes.
There are people. I'm willing to do that. There are a lot of people who wouldn't be willing.
You won't go to jail for doing that.
No.
Nor would a wedding not be legal for doing that. Because like you said, in order for a wedding to be legal in Minnesota, you have to declare intent and be pronounced married.
That's right.
And sign a license.
Right. Other than that, that's all you have to do. But so that questions of intent can be all sorts of different questions.
Right.
And then after that, usually affirmation of the family, like Josie, you were talking about, to ask the parents to stand and promise to do everything in their power to support the marriage. It's a great way to involve the parents without freaking them out.
Right.
Like, I gotta walk and I gotta talk and all they have to do is stand up. I prompt them with the question. They say we do. They sit down.
Mumble.
And so
they mumble a little, and Josie's in the background being like, we do. So it sounds louder.
At rehearsals, I try to tell my parents that if they're not emphatic enough, I will make them say it again.
It's just so many nerves, which is so, it's so adorable, but so not necessary. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But I'm on the other side, and I'm not getting married.
We're at a bunch of weddings a year, so
I know, but you don't have to be nervous.
No, but that's a really good way for them to feel like you have reached, for a couple to say, moms and dads, we really care about
Your
you being
approval.
involved.
Yeah.
And then after that, sometimes I'll have the entire congregation stand and ask them to support the marriage as well.
I
So
like that.
that's a very Presbyterian thing for you God nerds out there, if there's any of them. But
There
more
are.
of a,
We're in Minnesota.
yes, more of a community way of everyone affirming that this is something that they're going to support. Once those things are done and everybody sits down is the time where I give what I call the love message. And it's completely optional, but I love doing it. Where I, about 6 weeks before the wedding, send questions separately to the couple, and they answer them separately without sharing each other's answers. They send them back to me, and I write a 3 to 4 minute reflection on what they wrote.
Cute.
So it's like a mini sermon, but it doesn't have to reflect scripture. It can reflect
Specific about them.
It's specific about them. So I write, it's usually I take an idea about love that they both espouse to, introduce that, talk about how they fit into that, and then wrap it up. And it's a really great way to personalize a ceremony quickly.
I like that.
The best compliment I get at the end of a wedding ever is, how long have you known that couple?
A day.
Right. I've met them twice. But the secret is in being able to ask the right questions.
Right. And listening. Great skills. If you're a wedding vendor, you should listen.
A little bit.
Should also be chatty, but yes, appropriately so.
Right. Appropriately so, yes.
Okay, so love message.
Love message. And then right from there, I'm asking for the rings. Usually the best man has the rings. And then I offer a ring blessing if the couple would like that. And that's a really good time to talk about why they're exchanging rings. So do you like rings because they're shiny? Do you like rings because they're a promise that you're giving them to each other?
It's a symbol.
As a symbol of the vows? Is it the eternal circle? Sometimes those are family rings.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about that and put it in the blessing.
Antiquated rituals, just like you have cake.
Yes.
Because we are talking about harvest and being plentiful in love.
Yes.
So too, do you have a ring to symbolize the eternalness of your love?
Right. Or
unending.
These are metals from the inside of the earth. Like these are things that have been around for millions of years. So whatever those rings mean.
Yes.
We talk about that. And then we go into the exchange of vows and rings, which is not the legal part of the ceremony.
Right. Okay, here is my quick question. I've had a lot of couples that write their own ceremonies. Fine. But they kind of put it in an order that feels organic to them. Mm-hmm. And I sometimes have a hard time not impressing upon my opinion that I feel like rings should come first and then vows. Can you maybe slap some sense into me or agree with me?
One of the ways that I get around that issue is that, so I when I first started doing ceremonies, I started to realize that we were repeating ourselves a lot. Yeah. So if you have the questions of intent that might be particularly wordy, and then we get to the vows and you're kind of making the same promises, and then you're doing the rings and you're making the similar promises, what I like to do is when it's time to exchange vows, I'll say, partner A, place partner B's ring on that finger and repeat after me.
So then they're doing the vows
and rings
in their rings
together.
Yes. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, and so it takes away that repeating and time in the ceremony.
Because you're like, with this ring, I thee wed, blah, blah, blah. But then you're like, I vow to do blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
unless they wrote their own vows.
Well, and in that case, I'll say partner A put partner B's ring on their finger and magically hand them the note card that they gave me before the wedding and say, and read your vow.
Yeah.
So everybody takes turns. But if there's a word, it shortens it up. It makes it, the ring is important because I am giving it to you as a symbol, as a promise of the vows I'm about to make.
Yep.
Those promises.
And totally personal preference on whatever you do. And like we've said, I feel like now we're on time number 5. That's not the part that makes your wedding legal. So you can have creative freedom.
You can, some people will write note cards that, usually I'll ask a couple, do you want a very simple repeat after me? Mm-hmm. Or are you more of a paragraph person where you feel like you have a lot to say? Because if they have a lot to say, repeating after me is going to be bad.
Here's a note card. I will hold it for you.
So I would say maybe 30 to 40% of my couples do note cards instead of repeating after me.
Right.
And so really it's open because it's not the legal part. And then after that is a great time for another reading or a unity ceremony. So everybody's seen candles, unity candle. Everybody's seen the unity sand ceremony.
Or tying the knot.
Tying the knot. Like
planting a tree.
Yes, planting a tree. There's a stone ceremony where everybody gets a petal. Yep.
Last kiss before the first kiss.
Ooh, I've never done that.
Moms give their kids a kiss because they're the first people to kiss them into this world.
Holy cow, that's a new one.
The last one's to kiss them before they embark on this new journey. I did that for my wedding.
Goodness.
It was very sweet.
I've had a couple people do peanut butter and jelly, where they start playing the Peanuts theme, and then one of them spreads jelly on bread, one of them spreads peanut butter, and they make the sandwich and they share it. Cute. So there's all sorts of ways. Like the unity ceremony is a ritual that's based on what's important to you.
Right.
Using elements. Some people combine water. I had a couple that combined water from Lake Superior, the Mississippi River, and then some other location to and then they poured it into the Mississippi to talk about how it was making its way down to the Gulf of Mexico. So really, it's a time to take an element and infuse it somehow. Rocks, wine, water, trees, plants, and to make it your own. And it's the officiant's job to introduce that, to talk about why is this meaningful? Why is this couple doing this?
And to tell you to have music while you're doing it.
Yes. Yes, music while you're doing it. Unless you're doing a wine box ceremony where you're just like closing the box.
Clunk, 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 clunk.
Oh, should I tell that story?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so those of people who want to have a wine box at your wedding, just get a box that locks. Don't necessarily get a box that you have to nail shut. Years ago, one of my first weddings, the couple made this beautiful box, and they had these tiny little pilot holes for nails, and they wanted each of the wedding party to nail in one nail. Great. That's wonderful. I support that 100%. But the bridal party showed up pretty drunk. that license from. It does not have to be the county you are getting married in, and it does not have to be the county you currently live in.
Right. And that's for Minnesota.
That is for Minnesota. Wisconsin is completely different.
Right.
Wisconsin,
Washington's different.
Yep. You have to go for Wisconsin. You have to go to that county clerk of in the town that you're getting married.
And subject to change.
And subject to change. Always go to the website. So for Minnesota couples in particular, so if you're going to get a Hennepin County license, go to the Hennepin County website.
hennepin.us/residence/licenses-certificates-permits/marriage. It'll be in the show notes.
Or you could be like Hennepin County marriage license.
Yes, just do that.
Go. And that will tell you where you can go. It will tell you what you need to do, but I'll give you a couple things that will not change. You must go together. The two of you must go together unless one of you is actively deployed or for some reason cannot be in with you, but there has to be a good reason for that. Some of the counties, you can fill out things in advance. I believe Hennepin and Ramsey County, you can fill out things in advance and you can make a service center.
Ramsey is like same day.
Yeah.
But Hennepin is you have to make an appointment.
Okay. So you could
think.
show up to Hennepin, but you might be behind
Right.
a bunch of people and it could take hours depending on what's going on. Hennepin County, I believe, and maybe one other county, I wish I could remember which one, is the only one that has souvenir licenses.
Yes.
So, and a souvenir license is not an official document. It's just extra work.
Just for kicks. It's just for kicks.
But
It's not pretty. You're not going to frame it.
Nope.
My grandma bought, actually, I think I did get my marriage license in Washington State. And so my grandma bought us a really pretty souvenir, and she has really nice calligraphy handwriting. So
Beautiful.
she filled it out, and it looked amazing. And then we signed that one. And that's the one that we keep in our filing cabinet for no reason.
Yeah, because your grandma did something with it and it's pretty. But what'll happen is, the Hennepin County ones are all of the stuff that you're going to get from Hennepin County is 8.5 by 11 copy paper that's been laser printed.
Right.
It's not pretty. It's something that just has to be done. So you'll do that again at any county. And I always tell my couples, just if you can help it, do not go to the Hennepin County Service Center downtown Minneapolis.
Oh, go to Southdale.
Go to Southdale. Go to Ridgedale. Go anywhere else. It's. I
went there to change my name after we got married, twice.
Yeah, it's not. Just save yourself the hassle and find another place to go. But like I said, go to the whatever county's website. Follow the rules. I wish I could give more information, but the rules do change on a regular basis. So I never want to say this is how you do it.
So the couple is responsible for getting their marriage license.
Yes.
The officiant is responsible for being certified to marry people.
That's correct. So,
separate things.
Yes, very separate.
Your officiant does not get your marriage license. And officiants, if you are doing this on a whim and you've never done it before, you're not in charge of their marriage license.
Nope.
Remind them they can get it probably. Depends on where you get it, but usually 6 months before they get married.
6 months to the day
they're
of.
valid. Yeah.
So
they're valid for a while.
And thank you. So you can go I can't get your marriage license for you.
Right.
But on the day of your wedding, I'll take it from you. And I'll make sure that it gets filled out correctly. I'll make sure that it gets signed by everyone. And then I take it away from your ceremony to get it in the mail on Monday. So you're not
And it is the
worrying
officiant's responsibility to mail it in 5 days or less.
Yes.
It is not the couple's responsibility.
No.
It's on you, officiant.
It is
That's
on
a friend.
It is. And that's a really good thing to have because if you're running off to your honeymoon or you've got
you
cards
already have
and all
things
this
to
stuff.
worry about.
Yeah. So if your marriage license doesn't get filed, I get fined.
Right.
So that protects the couples.
Right. YouTube, we're going to say goodbye to you in 35 seconds, just so you know. So you'll have to go on Apple Podcasts and listen to this episode when it goes live. Wink. Okay. Because Ian is the greatest producer alive. Okay, so just to clarify again, because I get asked this question a ton, and I think officiants who are new and they don't know what they're doing, totally fine, but they are so worried and concerned about the marriage license. So do you suggest or do you have it in your practice that the marriage license gets shuffled around the day before at the rehearsal, passed off to the wedding planner, passed off to the officiant?
I like to take it at the rehearsal.
Okay. So that is a thing. I don't want to take your marriage license because it's just like in a bratty way. I don't have anything to do with it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not signing it. It shouldn't, I just don't think it should be my responsibility to like hold on to it and keep it. And I have that in my contract that I'm not supposed to have your belongings because of liability. So if there is a friend officiating, maybe that friend would be more comfortable if they had it, because then they are responsible and then they're not thinking like, oh, did I forget something? But really, I just think couple, just bring it with your stuff. You're also bringing your rings.
Yeah.
That's like a huge, like, we don't want to lose those.
Put it in the roughneck tote that you put everything else in.
Yeah.
Week of the wedding, I reach out to my couples and say, hey, it's your wedding weekend. This is what time I'm going to be at the rehearsal.
Right.
If there's still payment required, then I'll say this, bring that to the rehearsal. And also don't forget your marriage license.
Right.
So I'll take possession of those things at that time. If they forget the marriage license, I'll get it the next day. I'll get it at the wedding. It's totally fine.
It's totally fine.
But I want to take some stuff off their plate.
And you just sign the one piece of paper, and varies by county who signs it.
Right. So Hennepin County is the only county that makes a wedding couple sign again.
I knew it. Yes, and couples are so by YouTube. I think it's so